Only a fool fights in a burning house.
What's up, lore masters? In recent days, I've seen more and more conversations about how X person shouldn't be able to enjoy Star Trek, or confusion about how they do. Quite a bit of gatekeeping. These conversations range from your average Twitter person or YouTube personality to quote-unquote Twitter Trek fandom celebrities to larger YouTubers to even actual Star Trek alum, actual actors and actresses. Not to mention the crew behind the camera. This mentality is not only wrong, but really confusing. To be honest, if you aren't open to reaching out to someone who you think may be racist, may be evil, may be horrible, maybe, well, just anything you abhor, then you've missed the point of Trek. Or you're a Trek clout chaser that likes to virtue signal. Either or.
I am asked to give up the very lifeblood of my mother and my father to those who murdered them.
So you blame all Romulans for that?
Yes.
Forever. Would you and I be here now like this? If we hadn't been able to let go of the anger and the blame? Where does it end, Worf?
The truth is, the heroes of Starfleet, ranging from the original series all the way to the third season of Discovery and everything in between, these heroes generally always reached out to their enemies to give them a chance to bring them together. The crews of Starfleet that we see were open to the worst elements. They were open to others becoming good people. So, for those that have claimed to see the source material and then make content that does get them clicks or views or followers or money that balks at trying to reach out to other people, that's pretty telling. But if you just listen to that and you're not convinced, let's take a look at some examples of what I'm talking about.
Must jump in. Those who hate and fight must stop themselves, Doctor. Otherwise, it is not stopped.
In the original series episode, Day of the Dove, Kirk and Kang ultimately will have to come together to defeat an enemy that is trying to destroy them both. Kirk allies with a Klingon to ensure that the destruction of the Klingon ship and the Federation ship doesn't occur. Both men put aside their hate, and they opt to work together to protect each other. If this isn't the best episode for today's time, I don't know what is. But it doesn't even stop there.
No one is going to harm you. You have my word on that.
In The Next Generation, one of the greatest instances I can think of, among many, would have to be the one with Geordi LaForge and a Romulan who he would ultimately befriend one way or the other. What's interesting here is the Romulan man discusses how the Romulan Star Empire practices eugenics.
Without it, you're blind. Yeah. How did this happen?
I was born that way.
And your parents let you live?
What kind of question is that? Of course they let me live.
No wonder your race is weak. You waste time and resources on defective children.
And we know from other pieces of dialogue and episodes that the Romulans have an authoritarian regime with an SS-like entity known as the Tal Shiar. This man would, again, ultimately become Geordi's friend. And he was a soldier. This man fought and killed for the very entity that hated Starfleet, and that Starfleet stood against. In this very episode, The Enemy, Picard even has to give his own act of trust. He has to reach out to this dastardly Romulan that wants to kill everyone on board the Enterprise. Picard decides to trust and lowers his shields. In this very episode, two good people trusted, in theory, people who were very evil.
I think that I deliberately avoided meeting with the Borg because I didn't want anything to get in the way of our plan. But now that I have, he seems to be a fully realized individual.
Hell, do I even need to bring up the episode where Picard doesn't want to talk to Hugh because he's a Borg, only to find that a Borg drone can change and become someone who is good? If we continue on, there are examples of Sisko reaching out to Jim Hadar in Deep Space Nine.
But your holodecks allowed me to go further, to explore your culture, your history. I must admit, I've learned a great deal.
Hell, in Voyager's The Killing Game, the captain reaches out to a Hirogen Nazi. We're not even going to get into that. A Hirogen Nazi, and tries to come to a truce.
Or open a dialogue with us. Hopefully it is the latter.
No.
so that we can re-engage with the Klingon Empire and prove to you that now, as always, we come in peace.
Even in Star Trek Discovery, Starfleet attempts to create peace with the Klingons, who were said to be literal Trump stand-ins. Let me repeat that again. Georgiou and Starfleet Command attempt to create friendships with the Klingons, meant to be people that those who were behind the camera hated. Now, it didn't always work in these episodes. The toxic people sometimes stayed toxic, but that never stopped our heroes from trying. And, dear commenter, who's about to type a time when the heroes weren't as open to conversation as I'm pointing out, even in these instances when they were bigoted, when they wanted to harm their enemy, like what Picard does in First Contact, or even the times when Kirk wanted to let the Klingons die. That's almost universally portrayed as a negative. The messaging of Trek couldn't be any clearer. Now, to be precise, the intent of the writing for Trek was that the heroes saw the person behind the ideology. The ideology may be bad, or definitively was bad. The person, not necessarily so. While sometimes writers missed the mark in certain episodes and portrayed it not this way, honestly, that wasn't the point of it all. You could tell the intent was always to combat the ideology, not the person. I will caveat here though. Being open to a conversation doesn't mean that you have to, or are forced to, be put in situations that are hard for you to handle. If talking with someone that has a toxic ideology hurts you at an emotional level, there's nothing wrong with not engaging them. Just remember that an ideology is not the person, that even the most Hitleriest of Hitlers can be engaged, if you believe Trek is right. Now, if you think they're wrong, that not all people can be saved and that their ideologies make them racists and they deserve the guillotine, well, you disagree with Trek, and that's between you and the Star Trek writers. At the end of the day, this video was conceived due to my frustration and sadness at what I see going on. It's occurring everywhere, and I just hope that one day we can reach the level of humanity portrayed in Trek. People are just going to use special pleading to say, oh no, the reason why I'm a bigot and hate this person because they believe in X is okay, and it's totally good with Trek because I somehow am bending over backwards to make it work. But I just hope we can move past it one day. All of these are just my opinions though. Opinions based on incontrovertible fact, but opinions nonetheless. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below.
But your holodecks allowed me to go further, to explore your culture, your history. I must admit, I've learned a great deal.
How so?
Your people have faced extinction many times, but you've always managed to avoid it. You seem to recognize the need for change.
Yes. You've got one of those moments running right now on the holodeck. We called it World War II.
One of your most difficult eras. And yet you survived.
It wasn't easy.
You are a resilient species. I admire your cunning.
Let's end this.